Built for structured logging, Seek lets you filter and exclude events by type, search by event properties, build dashboards, and configure alerts in seconds. Seek helps you troubleshoot and resolve issues more efficiently than ever before. Available as a simple Windows installer or Docker image, try Seek for free now at datalust.co/SEQ. That's datalust.co/SEQ. Hi, I'm Scott Hansel, and this is another episode of Hansel Minutes. Today I'm chatting with Toi B. Wright. She is a lead software developer at First Command Financial Services. She's been an independent consultant for many years, been working in software for over 25 years, and I'm thrilled to be chatting with you today. How are you?
Hi, Scott. It's great to be here.
Yeah. I haven't seen you in a long time. I came down to Texas and did one of your user groups many years ago. And you've also been a Microsoft MVP for, now 18 years. But I haven't seen you in a while because of the pandemic.
Yes, but hopefully we will be seeing each other at the summit.
Yeah, but I have seen you on bookshelves, and I am in fact holding in my hand your latest book, the refreshed second edition of Blazor WebAssembly by example. And this is great because it's been updated. It's got .NET 7, Blazor WebAssembly, and a lot of really good samples. This is a by example book. Did you write the book that you would want to read?
Oh, yeah. Yes. Thank you for that. And also, just to start off, thank you for writing the foreword for the book.
Oh, that is a good point. We should point that out. I was very blessed to write the foreword to this book because I only write a foreword for a book that I would enjoy. And I like this book, and I like your books because they're practical. It's like, here's projects like chapter 1. Let's do it. Chapter that. It's very realistic. Let's build, you know what I mean? Let's build a PWA. Let's build an Excel application. And you answer the questions by just writing the code. And I think that's really cool.
Yeah. And what I also wanted to do was I wanted to create a book that you didn't have to go from, chapter 1 in order throughout the book, that you could actually jump around and just do the chapters that you were interested in. So each chapter has a standalone project. And that just allows you that freedom to be able to read the chapters that you're interested in, as opposed to a lot of books where it's one project. And if you didn't read chapter 6, then even though you're interested in something that's chapter 9, you're not going to understand it.
Yeah, that's a great point. Chapter 8, building a Kanban board. Chapter 7, building a shopping cart. And you're building on concepts, but you're not building some super giant app that requires 26 chapters of context in order to do.
Right. And then also, I wanted to have step-by-step instructions. So literally, it tells you, each step, or screenshots even, to help direct you so that you can complete the project very easily.
Yeah. And also you've got a community on Discord for discussions. And at the end of each chapter, you've got further reading. And then you also call out important notes and tips. And hey, by the way, so you're really kind of there with the developer, with the reader.
And there's actually a link for each chapter to a video that shows me completing each of the projects.
See, okay. Well, then I'll start the interview like this. Have you always been an overachiever, or are you just trying to make us all look bad?
That's a hard question. How do I answer that?
Well, I guess I'm pointing out that you're showing a lot of empathy in the way that you write the book, and when you do your talks and when you talk to developers, because you're writing not just the book that you would want for yourself, but you're saying, all right, if I'm reading this book and I want to learn Blazor, I'm going to want a community. I'm going to want sample code. I'm going to want videos. Where is that coming from?
I think because of my experience with user groups. As you mentioned, I ran the Dallas ASP.NET user group for many years, 15 years, and it was the second largest ASP.NET user group in the world. And my mission was always to be able to help developers at every level. So we would have people coming in who weren't proficient in ASP.NET, but also we have people that's been their day job for 5 years or 10 years. And to be able to provide information at the 100 level, the 200 level, and the 300 level, so that everybody coming together as that community would get something out of those meetings. So that was always my goal with the user group.
Yeah. And that empathy is necessary for people to really connect with the technology, to connect with other people. I got to speak at your user group. Gosh, it's actually been 10 years. It'll be 10 years this August at your 10-year extravaganza.
Yeah.
When you were running that long. I think that's why I appreciated the way that you run things is I like to present in the same way. This is what I would have wanted if I were getting started.
Yeah, and I try to do that in the book too. With like each chapter, has the introductory stuff, mostly 200 level, but stick a little 300 level stuff in there too, so that everybody who reads it can get something out of it.
Well, you started in ASP.NET at the beginning, right? But you weren't always a web developer. Is that right?
Yes. I was a Windows developer. I was doing retail software development at Texas Instruments. So the calculator group. I was working on calculators and handheld organizers. And
I never knew that. Did you work on like the TI-83 or something like that?
Yes, I was working on
my God.
73, the 92, the 89.
We found her. Oh my goodness. My kids are still using those things.
And
that's so funny.
So what I was working on was all the computers basically synchronized with the PC. And so I was the one who was writing the PC apps that actually synchronized with the different handheld organizers and calculators.
Okay, so you probably worked on like the TI Avigo desktop software.
I worked for 4 years on the Avigo, yes.
The Avigo.
If you look at all the marketing material, it has my name on all of the marketing material in the sample and on the box.
Oh my goodness. Okay.
And then also what was really kind of cool, the project manager had a caricature artist come in and do a caricature of all the developers and then put those caricatures at the beginning of each chapter in the user guide.
Very cool. Okay. So that must have been in C or C++.
That was in Delphi.
In Delphi. Okay. I was doing Delphi as well. So you've done Delphi, you've done Visual Basic 6, you must have spent time in Visual InterDev. When did the leap from Windows to the web happen?
I was working on an app and basically even for the Avigo, everything is localized. At Texas Instruments, everything was being localized into at least 5 languages. And I ended up working on another app where everything was localized into like 20 languages. They'd have to be perfect, right? Because they're being installed. They weren't on the web. We couldn't just go, oh, there wasn't something wrong on this page. Let me just update that, throw it out to the web server, and it's fixed. And what happened was I ended up working on a project for TI Europe that was a web app. And it just revolutionized my life because it was so easy to do the updates. And then everybody, got it instantaneously. It's just, I instantly became a web developer after the first time I wrote one. And I got Visual InterDev. I just started making web apps. And then I started with a consulting company that was doing web app development. And that's how I got into web apps.
Okay. And then you stuck around because you went from classic ASP to
Yes, I went through the whole thing at classic ASP. Yes. And then to ASP.NET.
One of the things that I think is a benefit that I think you and I as ASP.NET developers are spoiled in that we started with it and we saw the evolution. So we're always seeing things moving. Do you think it's challenging for someone to drop in a year ago, 5 years ago, or today when they don't have that context? Is that a good thing or a bad thing?
I don't think it's that hard to drop in. I mean, it's nice having the background of having used ASP Classic because you really do understand all the components work and there's no mystery to it, or magic. But, I work with a lot of developers like in their early 20s and they are really enjoying using ASP.NET and they don't have I'm not seeing that they are having issues with that.
Interesting. So maybe they don't have any baggage.
Yeah,
that I might
too.
Have. Okay. So if you're going to start in ASP.NET today, though, you've got choices, right? You could start in Razor Pages, but you're loving Blazor. And why is Blazor the place that at least you think people should start because you wrote a book on it?
I think they should start with it because it enables you to, use a framework that's built on top of ASP.NET Framework to create single-page applications, which is, all the young guys, that's what they want to create are single-page applications. But you can use C# on the client instead of JavaScript, which makes it even easier because they don't have to learn both.
Some people think learning both is important, and other people are like, nope, I love C#. I can use it everywhere. Do you jump back and forth, or do you actively avoid JavaScript?
I actively avoid JavaScript,
I
but
appreciate your courage, by the way, to say that. You know what I mean?
I use it every day.
I do too.
So
I do. I use it every day, and I avoid it like the plague, right?
even though, I still use it every day.
Yeah. Well, there's chapters in the book
It's
about
like,
it.
With purpose, you say, okay, do I need to use JavaScript, or can I use C# here?
Mm-hmm. Does that make your application less powerful? Because you have whole sections, like I'm looking at chapter 5, building a local storage service using JavaScript interoperability. You're obviously not afraid of it. You've got it to be sprinkled throughout the book, but you acknowledge very clearly, like, why should I use it? When should I use it? Some people think that JavaScript is not the language we deserve, but it's the language that we have.
Yeah, obviously there's still, different libraries that are written in JavaScript, and you're going to want to use them.
Mm-hmm.
And so in the book, especially like you were talking about chapter 5, it does show you how to invoke, a JavaScript function from a .NET method, and how to do it synchronously, asynchronously, with parameters, without parameters. All those are covered because there's a lot of options and a lot of tools out there and libraries out there that you're not going to want to say, I don't want to use that because that's written in JavaScript. Mm-hmm. Why would you limit yourself? That's why we do have that chapter 5 to show you how to go ahead and use some of those libraries.
Now, Blazor has kind of two sides. There's Blazor Server and Blazor WebAssembly. Maybe you could explain that to our audience.
Okay, so the first version of Blazor that Microsoft released was the Blazor Server. And in that case, everything's running on the server, and it's using SignalR in order to send notifications down to the browser. But that's going to require that you have a constant connection with the server, and that you have enough connections to the server so that, everybody who wants to play and use your app can use your app. Now with Blazor WebAssembly, everything's going to be pushed down to the browser. And, initially there can be some delay because you do have a lot of, data that needs to be pushed down to the browser to get started. But there are ways to work around that. And that's covered in the book as well. And then once it's running on the browser and you have everything down there, you can run offline. You can create a progressive web app. It's going to feel very responsive and feel very native. And then, as some people have probably seen, there is another flavor of Blazor coming with .NET 8. And right now it's called Blazor United. Mm-hmm. And Blazor United allows you at the component level to designate where you want that component rendered. Do you want it rendered in the server? Do you want it rendered in Blazor WebAssembly? Or there's even an option for auto to say, okay, page, the first time you might want to render it in the servers because it's going to be faster because you haven't downloaded what you would need to run in Blazor WebAssembly yet to the browser. And so that's going to be that flexibility and let you, as the developer, decide what is rendered on the server and what's rendered on the browser using the WebAssembly. So I think that's going to be a really cool option. I'm looking forward to being able to use that. For people who are interested, you can go out there to GitHub and download the app branch.
Okay. All right. So let me back up and see if I understand, because I want to set context, not just for myself, so I understand, but also for our friends who might be getting started or thinking about getting started. So with Blazor, you are writing everything in C#. And if you do it with what you said was server-side Blazor, the logic, kind of most of the business logic is running on the server side, and we have a communication channel. So if I click a button, I'm sending that event down that channel. And you said it uses SignalR. And SignalR is that WebSockets connection, or that abstracted WebSockets connection. Is that correct so far?
Yes.
Okay. And then the business logic, if I was going to write button.click, I pushed a button and I put an item in the shopping cart, the logic happens on the server side. And you said it requires that persistent connection. So if I go in a tunnel, I might miss that message.
Yeah. Yes. Definitely. That is the problem with the server side.
Okay. And do you prefer the WebAssembly model? The WebAssembly model is bringing basically all of .NET and running it like in the browser, in this assembly language, in this WebAssembly language.
Yes, because I like progressive web apps, and I like to be able to work offline, and I like that freedom, not being tethered to the server.
Mm. And progressive web apps are such a fun thing. I almost feel like not enough people know about them because it's kind of like the best of all worlds.
Right. Yeah. And I have a whole chapter on progressive web apps.
You do.
And actually, yeah, a lot of people did comment from the first edition that they really enjoyed that chapter because it does walk you through how to create the progressive web app, the service worker that you're going to create, and different information about different types of service workers. So all that is included in that chapter.
Okay, so let's talk about that. So let's just use, because I'm selfish, hanselminutes.com. I've got hanselminutes.com. You hit the page in your browser. We do a get. We load the pictures of all of our wonderful guests, and it's a web page. How would that be? I think it's a PWA now, but if that wants to be a PWA, what is the benefit? Like, why would someone want that to be a PWA and not just a web page?
Well, a PWA is going to be able to, you can install it, you can put it on your taskbar, you can treat it like a native app.
Put it in a store?
Yeah, you could put it in the store. That is true.
Okay. So we go to hanselminutes.com, we hit the ... in our Chrome or our Edge, we go apps, we say install this as an app, and it brings everything down. So if it's a Blazor progressive web app, how is it caching the code? How does it know what to do if I'm in airplane mode?
Well, that's going to be due to however you write your service worker. So your service worker is going to, by using that, you're going to decide what you're going to cache. The simplest progressive web app, it's going to just cache like an HTML page that says, you're currently offline, please get online, in order to continue using this app. But you can also, because you have control as the web developer, you can decide what to cache. Now, a lot of times what the people do is they cache pages as they are retrieved. And then once they're cached, they always serve from the cache first. So you cache it, and then you use that page. And that way you end up with a whole number of pages. So when you are offline, you have those pages cached. So there's a whole bunch of different ways to write service workers. And that's what's covered in the chapter. There's like 7 different types of service workers, depending on, because some pages you want to cache and some pages you would never cache because the data just needs to be refreshed so frequently.
Right. So you could imagine a world where someone has a store and maybe the product catalog is cached, but the shopping cart isn't. So they can browse, but then they can't check out because they're offline.
Right. And then it would just say you need to be online to use this functionality.
Okay. And you talk about that in chapter 6. We talk about the service worker life cycle. There's the install moment where it's like, we're going to cache the static assets. So if I was going to make hanselminutes.com a service worker, a progressive web app, I would have a service worker. The browser knows about that. It's a standard. It's the magic behind PWAs. I cache all that static stuff, and then I need to decide what's the point of me being an app, right? Do I cache 800 episodes of the show or just the last 5? Totally up to me, right? What my app's behavior is going to be.
Right.
Okay. But in the context of Blazor, service workers are kind of browsery things, are JavaScripty things. Blazor knows about being a service worker, and making a progressive web app is not hard in Blazor?
Yes, it is very simple in Blazor to create a progressive web app. It's just a matter of following the steps that are outlined, adding the manifest and adding the service worker.
Mm-hmm. So the manifest file, that's the thing that it all starts. Like if you have a manifest, it's like it's your icon, it's your name, and that's the thing that makes you officially an app?
Right. And there's some required fields, but there's like those 5, basically.
Do you make all of your apps progressive web apps now? Are you that into them that everything should be a PWA?
Pretty much.
That could be a thing, right? PWA driven development.
Yes.
I assume you laughed because I hit a nerve.
I usually do make them into progressive web apps because there's no reason not to.
Well, that's an important big statement. Like you've just said something really interesting for developers who are listening, who maybe have websites that they're maintaining, web apps that they're working on. If you have a web app and you've made it, a one that works on mobile and works on desktop, you really have no reason to not make it a progressive web app because it's just going to make the experience for the user better.
Right. They're going to feel like it's more of a native app.
So when you have a Blazor application that's a WebAssembly app, you're bringing your .NET code down if you choose to with the manifest and with the service worker, and it can run entirely offline. So you're going to be running .NET code, is that right, in the browser, maybe even on my iPhone?
Yes, that is true. The only issue is if there is some data, obviously, like you said in your example with the shopping cart, and you need to send that data to the server or get data from the server, you would not be able to do that offline.
But so then at that point, you detect that you're offline or not, and you make some kind of a decision. At that point, you have to decide. This becomes a user experience decision, doesn't it?
Yes, this is when the developer would decide what's going to happen in the offline situation. And then we can use the local storage to say, you can start putting stuff in there and having information in there. And then what happens is when you go back online, maybe have some kind of synchronization happen. So some people do that as well.
Yeah, and that's really interesting. You talk about that in chapter 6, where you basically have this how smart do you want your progressive app want to be? Is it just an offline page? Hey, I know that you wanted to talk to me, but I'm not here. Or it's an offline copy of the pages and it doesn't do anything. It just looks like you can at least see something. But you're saying you can go all the way up to the complex, which is where you have like background sync. Could I actually make it so I could put stuff in my shopping cart?
Yeah.
And then it would go out when I leave the tunnel?
Yes. So there's a lot of people that are doing that right now.
In the shopping cart chapter, do you go that far? I'm running through the chapter right here and I'm looking at all the drugs. You walk through that step by step?
Because each chapter is about 30 pages long.
That's true. They are bite-sized.
That one mostly is on dependency injection, is what that chapter's real meat is on the shopping cart.
Oh, interesting. Are you basically you're using the examples to sneak a concept into someone's mind? So the weather service teaches me PWAs and the shopping cart teaches me dependency injection.
Yeah, that's what I am doing.
That's very cool. Yeah, I appreciate that level of attention to detail and trying to put that stuff in my head ahead of time.
Right, so you can see why it's useful.
You were an independent consultant for a while as well. When you're selling not just yourself but a technology to the company, do they just take your word for it and like you say, I'm going to use Blazor, and they're like, that sounds cool, or do they come technology first and they say, we want this, and then you have to just write it in the language that they want?
Usually they come with the problem, and I can write in whatever language I choose. Because usually they are having some sort of pain point and not able to accomplish whatever their goal is. And I'm going to offer them a solution, and they don't care what language it's written in. So
if you said someone, we're going to use Blazor, and they either maybe haven't heard of it or they're like, oh, okay, that sounds cool. There's no concerns because is there any concerns for recommending Blazor because it runs entirely on open web standards?
No one has been concerned about that. Well, meaning it's Microsoft and it's ASP.NET, and those are robust platforms.
And in the hybrid world, though, I could have one of my pages be Blazor and I could have one of my pages be Razor pages. I can mix and match as much as I want, right?
Yes. And that's great, too, because you can take something that already exists and you can add to it.
Do you think you're going to have to keep this book updated forever? You just came out with the second edition, and now there's Blazor United and all these other new pushes.
I was talking to my husband about that yesterday.
And now you have to write another edition. Are you starting that already?
So if I'm going to do .NET 8, then yeah, I'd have to start it next week.
That's hilarious, though, because things are always moving. But this is up to date right now. Second edition is covering .NET 7, which is out, so we can do this right now.
Yes.
You don't have to wait. Now is the day to start.
Yeah. This came out right after, .NET 7 dropped. Because I actually finished it in December of last year.
Oh, wow. So you were there right as 7 came out. That's pretty cool.
We had to do the editing and layout and stuff like that. So that was actually published the end of February.
So ASP.NET has always kind of felt united to me. And I think Blazor United is a cool title.
I like that name. I don't know if that's going to stick. Is that going to be the final name?
I don't know. I will push to make it stick because we always take cool names for stuff and then we make it a dumb name at the end. But Blazor's a cool name, right? It should stay that way. And Blazor United is even better. So as we get towards the end here, and we talk about the book not yet written, what if you love Blazor WebAssembly? Why would I be excited about Blazor United?
Well, because Blazor United takes the best of both worlds. It takes everything that's wonderful about Blazor Server and everything that's wonderful about Blazor WebAssembly, and it combines it together, giving the developer the power to choose when to use which one. Because like we were kind of saying before, there are pages like, say you're doing some sort of stock ticker or something, and you want that information to come over from the server, and then you have some other information like people are filling out forms or something where you don't want to have a constant connection. You could have it be WebAssembly. So having people, the developer would have that freedom that easily in one app without having to, like you're saying, you can go ahead and you can cobble together different tools and have MVC and whatnot. But this way, it kind of gives you that power in one place. I think it looks cool. I mean, it's not obviously released yet because it's .NET 8. But yeah, if I was going to write a book, my next book would be on Blazor United.
And if I read this book, though, second edition of Blazor WebAssembly by Example for .NET 7, I'm going to be up to date and ready to go as soon as 8 comes out, because all of the same concepts are going to move forward.
And even if you are doing Blazor Server, this book still applies. Most of this book applies. Then you can still go out and buy it too.
Very cool. And I understand that one of the things that's going to be fun about Blazor United is, you mentioned at the very beginning of our conversation that initial loading with the WebAssembly version might be a little bit of a moment, a little slower. Apparently, you can kind of dynamically switch between server mode and WebAssembly mode in the future.
Yes, that is the plan. Until it comes out, we won't be sure, but that is the intent.
Well, people seem to like it. So I went up to the core roadmap for .NET 8, and it looks like this is just going to get better and better and better. So I appreciated you allowing me to write the foreword to your book and learn .NET 7 WebAssembly, and I feel like I'm in a good place to learn Blazor for whatever they throw at us going forward.
Oh, well, thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Well, congratulations on the release of the book, and thanks so much for chatting with me today.
It was my pleasure.
We've been chatting with Toi B. Wright. She's the author of Blazor WebAssembly by Example. Check out the second edition. It's out. You can get it right now. And I got to write the foreword. You can learn all about Blazor WebAssembly by Example. This has been another episode of Hansel Minutes, and we'll see you again next week.